sense. But this is handy so that we're...
I don't hear Chris. Do you hear Chris?
Well, I was... Okay. Yeah. So this will run until it's time to go, and then as soon as you trigger the start, it will run through everything else as designed. So I'll mute and wait until we start.
What is it about riding a bike that is so liberating? What unites us all is the craving for that special feeling. This is what inspired the developers at Garneau to create the innovative, award-winning X-Comfort technology, optimizing comfort to maximize performance and, most of all, the good feelings that make us so passionate about riding. The brand new X-Comfort Zone incorporates an elasticized zone that expands up to 5 millimeters to accommodate B through D+ foot widths. We all pedal in the same way. As you push down, your toes naturally splay. And the dynamic changes that happen inside your shoe as your feet contract and expand under pressure as you ride. The pressure and friction created as the outside of your foot expands over and over against your shoe can create serious and painful hot spots and irritations. The longer you ride, the worse it can become. This makes for a level of never-before experienced comfort in the highest performing cycling footwear. Every cyclist rides for that special feeling that cycling brings to us. Each one of us has our own version of what it means to enjoy the ride. We just help make it possible.
Go down the road. All right, don't throw your arms in the air. Don't do anything crazy. No random shit, okay?
I had my own strategy. I was actually working for you guys. So what I did at the last moment, I just pulled back. So you guys need to buy me some beers.
Esports. We love to play. Since the 1980s, video games and competitive gameplay have been part of our Western culture. The video arcade, the Atari, Nintendo, PlayStation, even PC gaming are all part of this rich cultural lineage of play. We play ourselves, we watch, we even compete. What makes an esport? Well, any individual or team game that can be played on a level playing field in competition, whether that's live or online.
Still alive! Charm's gonna land onto him! Is he gonna be able to walk away? Baker is still running! Still damaging him! There's another turn! And expansion goes down!
While there are half a dozen top-tier esports, more than 100 different titles are being played competitively around the world. Esports break all boundaries. They're played by men and women across cultures and can be played on consoles, PCs, and even mobile devices. Esports are truly a world sport. Over the last decade, we've seen interest, broadcasting, and live events eclipse those of their traditional sport counterparts. Esports are a massive draw. We love to watch them live, and we love to watch them stream. For people under 30, video games are the most popular media industry in the world, more popular than television, music, or movies. But competitive video game play is not just something we do, it's something we watch. In 2016, more people watched the League of Legends Championships than the World Series, the NBA Championships, or the Stanley Cup playoffs. That makes the top 3 sporting events in the World Cup, the Super Bowl, and a video game competition. Esports are the sport of the rising generation. Talented players, broadcasters, and managers are filling every level from professional, now to collegiate, high school, and even pee-wee. To many, esports is the biggest world they've never heard of. But to millennials, it's the future of competition, of broadcasting, and of sport. But not the distant future, the future of today. This is esports. Well, hello there, everybody. Thanks for joining us here. We're out on course. This is London, at least virtual London. And we're excited to bring you this Zone F of the CVR World Cup League. And I'm Chris Haskell, joined by Frank Garcia. In just a couple of minutes, we see ourselves here in the pen. Just a couple of minutes to go until this first group kicks off. But this course may break the entire thing wide open today. That's right, we may see something we have never seen before, and that is a huge shakeup in the standings. Now, the shakeup in the standings is going to come in the form of this unbelievable climb, Box Hill. Our course today, which is actually 2 laps, a total of 40.6 kilometers. It's going to be nearly 500 meters of climbing today, and twice up Box Hill, the toughest hill in virtual London. Now, it's a little bit harder coming up the other way, but you know what? We're going to do this. Long lead in Zone F, and who is at the top of the charts? That would be our guy, David Talbot, the ODZ rider. How about that guy? He's at the top of the podium right now, but he's not going to stay there for long, because if he can't climb, then he's not going to make it to the top. Lauren McMurtry in the women's category leads all comers at this point. But anything can happen on a day like today. Zone F, there are going to be fireworks. These are not the deepest fields, but they are definitely powerful fields. You look at who's already here. Modi Pakilny is already lined up. Griffiths, there's a couple of those. We've got some VRT riders. Muir, McLaughlin, and a few others just piling in here. Talbot is our guy right now, but Justin Purificati says, I'm going to take that away from you today. And in 15 seconds, he may just try to do that. Now, as we get ready to go here, this gate is going to drop and things are going to get, as the kids say, cray cray. And that's usually what happens. It's going to be a hot, fast start, but you cannot get away on the flat of central London as we get ready to do this. A big, long loop before we get up to that climb. Now, as we grab onto the right riders, McLaughlin, Pikelny, Purificati, Barrett, all sprint out of the gates. But the man we do not see is the man whose name we just called, and that is the leader of this race. He's nowhere to be found. Talbot, get your buns up there, my friend. Now, Justin Purificati is going to move closer to the front of this race, most certainly. Now, they're going to do what they can to stay near the front early on and not let any big gaps form, but there is a possibility people could get trimmed off the back awful early. So if you're just joining us, you don't know much about this whole virtual bike racing thing, well, I feel bad for you. You really, really should. You can catch your favorite riders over on the CycleView app, CVRWorldCup.com. And that's the place, cycleview.cvrworldcup.com. Now, the women's gate is about to drop. They're going to see only themselves on the same course, but this is the big group. Sandra Deegan in this group. Vicky Whitelaw also in the group. Lauren McMurtry just busts out of the gates as quickly as she can. Joyner, the Vixen rider, also very close to the front. In fact, on the front. They're sprinting out of the gates. Rachel Ruby Zambrano in the house as well. She is going to be broadcasting here. All of these folks that you can select over on CVRWorldCup.com. Those are the folks. Okay. Lauren McMurtry, Kai Barrett, Cheryl Muldoon, Rachel Zambrano are some of those that are streaming. You can watch individuals. Harry Roberts, Leo, Muddy Pikelny, David Talbot, Frank Deal, Steve Smith among the men broadcasting over on CycleView. Frank and I are here together, and this is pretty dang exciting, my friend. What do you think of this this course really, and how it sets up for these two groups of riders?
Well, typically what you see is you got two big climbs here with quite a bit of flat leading up to both climbs. So normally what you see is sort of an easy start. And if we switch to camera 2 at the moment, we'll see there was a little bit of action going on at the front of the men's race. And I would expect us to see that. We've seen some breaks happen between the two climbs on the flats that have been quite decisive today. For instance, in Zone E, Kim Little got away with a small group of climbers. He's a good climber as well, but he's also a good sprinter, and so he was able to take the victory. So people get a little too distracted, start checking their text messages, and before you know it, there's a break that's happening up the road. Don't expect that to happen until after the first climb. Both climbs are quite hard VO2 max efforts in the 6-minute range. If you're going super fast, maybe 5.5 minutes. And if you're going a little bit slower, sort of in the 6, 7, 8-minute range. But those will be tough. Those will make the initial selections as we ride out, and then we'll see how things go from there.
Well, as we look in on this men's group, we see a number of different jerseys. I have been very tickled of late by the number of people who will put on their level 25 jersey. It's almost ironic that we're starting to see this 25 jersey come back a little bit, almost kind of a rib to the developers to say, hey, remember 2 years ago when we had levels, and now we're all the level 25 has become kind of an inside joke in the Zwift community. Now, the funny part was, of course, over on the broadcast, which was hosted by Zwift and a few of our friends over there, folks like Nathan Guerra, folks like, Jesper Anker. And that whole crew, they made sure to point out all of the riders that were level 25. That was entertaining. And so if you're watching on any of the the properties out there, let us know who you think is going to come away with this race today. I'd love to get a sense of that from you. There are a number of different folks, obviously, that they're near the top of this thing that we'd like to be able to report on. But as I check in on this, I see folks like Neil Stewart, BJ Alfonso. How's it going, folks? Thanks for joining us here today on this race. And we aim to give you a good one. Adam Zimmerman, the team draft writer, also in this group. This men's group is going to shake out, I think, quite a bit differently than it came into the race. If you check at cycleview.cvrworldcup.com, you will find a little link there that says click here to view the live race results. And if you do, it will bring up these results as they exist now. Well, a collection of these. We're in zone F, but you can sort it by any of the groups. And let me tell you how things are shaping up in the men's right now. In first place, not on the course, but coming into this race, David Talbot with a total of quite a few points, right? His average points, 999.5, the average points. Frank Deal in second place right behind him, and Matthew Brandt in that third position. Now, all of these men are together in this race today. I'll add to the list of notables, Chris Olson, Greg Leo, Kai Barrett, and Adam Zimmerman, who I just mentioned, and Nikki Mason. Now, Adam Zimmerman, you'll remember, had an outstanding performance out sprinting Lionel Sanders in CVR World Cup LA. That was a great event. If you missed it, you can watch it back. We can also get it to you on VHS if you're interested. No, not really. But Adam Zimmerman had some fantastic sprints around the outside of some folks like Lionel Sanders at the sprint line here. Now, as we look at this group, we see a number of different riders moving to the front of this women's group, but they are essentially all back together with the exception of Rachel Ruby Zambrano, who did not make this cut early on. Now, she's a very strong rider on her way back from a rougher season. She has been a live contestant and definitely a favorite of the women's community. You love her, you hate her, you love to hate her, but she will always put her arms around you. She is amazing. Absolutely wonderful racer, Rachel Ruby Zambrano. So she's in the group, but she's off the back of the group. She may just be lining up just to get her some points today, but this may not be the ride for her. Okay, Vicky Whitelaw sitting at the front of this group, really setting the pace here. 4.2, 4.5 watts per kilo as they come up and over. You get one drift by in Gokalp. I'm not sure who that rider is. Maybe I can give you that detail in just a second. But you'll notice that the women's standings have Lauren McMurtry, who I mentioned at the top of the show, in that first place, and there she is right now. She is streaming her view, at least what it looks like if you sit on the little end table just in front of her. She's a fabulous rider, did amazing things in CVR LA. She loves to race and to shake it up with these women, Cheryl Muldoon being one of those women she likes to race with. But this will be very interesting. Vicky Whitelaw kind of had her way with the race last week, several times up the reverse. Well, it was a figure eight, so it was twice up the hilly climb on Watopia. And she was able to just deliver and get away. Lots of people predicting that she could, in fact, do the same thing today on these climbs. Now, McMurtry is in a position right now where she can finish in first today. That is her max potential. She could finish at the max here. There she is right there. We just saw her froze up a little bit. That can happen on the interwebs sometimes. But McMurtry back on your screen again. She is sitting in first place with the most points at this point. Although there's maybe not the most points. Actually, she's second in points. She's got 6,026, right? Well, that's her max points available this season. She's actually sitting at 2,999 currently. She's raced all 3 races, Lauren McMurtry has, and 2 races for Cheryl Muldoon chasing her. Now, the average number is going to matter in the end because you count your best 6 races towards your total points. And that means that the lowest 2 will drop. So if you miss one, if you're sick, it accounts for it in the standings. But Vicky Whitelaw, proving that she's such a fantastic climber, is probably going to get away with something today. She's going to hit that hill, and a lot of people predict she's just going to move away. Now, Lauren's still in a great spot. She's sitting right near the front of that. Of the women in the field, she's poised to finish the highest. Sandra Deegan, though, would like to be able to climb back some spots today, and she conceivably can. She can move from 4th into third if she can beat Vicky Whitelaw. Otherwise, she may just stay in that fourth position. Emily Joyner, secure in her position. She'll need a couple more races under her belt to get where she needs to. And Catherine Fortier, excuse me. She does say it Fortier, even though she is, no, wait, I'm confusing it. I'm confusing it with Pothier. She pronounces it very phonetically, but Fortier is, in fact, from Canada. All right. As we look at this women's field, we'll notice that there are just a handful of riders, but they line up to race each other every week. And in that men's field, it is very similar. But you'll notice a few hangers-on in this B field as well for the men, including Modi Pekelny, who joined us at CVR World Cup LA. That would be the major. Steve Smith chasing him in the points. James Kaiser, Jean-David Paré, and of course, Rex Schumacher. That'd be Michael Rex Schumacher to his family when he does something wrong. Michael Rex Schumacher, you better pick up these shoes. Arthur Matheson and Kazeo Enui. Round out this men's B field. There are many more there. We'll call those names later, I am sure. But a couple things to note here. There is a very trusted lieutenant still within this group here. Now, he's rated a C, but he's well known to Cheryl Muldoon, and that's Don McPhail. Don has been instrumental in her success in all facets of this game, and he in hers, just like they're riding buddies. They're in the same room together. They're probably even listening to my voice right now, call them out. Well, they're wonderful to see when they race. And we'll see who's fastest today. I think it's probably Cheryl. But Don is in this group, and he can do a lot of work for some different folks. There's the man we've come to know very well, Frank Deal. Deschutes Brewery across his chest. Look at that overlay. That is what we call a picture-perfect overlay. Looking good, my friend. Okay. Now, on the course here, we're about to come through this little section of the pane. We're on the strand. We're going to hang this, and we're going to go the other way. Anybody who is dangling painfully off the back of this group is going to be able to see this group go by, and they're going to feel like they're awful close. Now, are they, in fact, awful close? Hard to tell. No. What we've got here is just a little bit of an interesting character in this group. You've got A, you've got B, you've got C. Now, all of them have the A next to their name, but they're racing in different groupings, in different divisions, if you will. We don't call them categories per se, right? They're brackets, right? The A bracket, the B bracket, the C bracket, and D. That is really to be a little bit more flexible and to not be confused with categories because the rules are a little bit different. You can race a C in one race group and you can be in the B bracket in this one. Okay. Just off the front of this women's race, we see Whitelaw with the sprint through just to try to maybe shake things up a little bit. Emily Joyner responsible for pulling that group back, and Sandra Deegan, Catherine Fortier also jump on her wheel. Cheryl Muldoon trying to close that gap and not get lost off the back there. Joyner drifts to the front here, the Vixen rider. The Velocity Vixen team doing a lot of great stuff, but look at how torn up this got. Joyner decides she's going to attack over the top, maybe try to get a little bit more separation. She does have Cheryl Muldoon, her teammate, in that group, but she's going to have to try to get a break at some point. She's maybe done it on the flap. Two off the front here as they come through Trafalgar Square. Not really Trafalgar Square. This would be virtual Trafalgar Square. And Vicky Whitelaw right on her wheel. She would love for the opportunity to get someone to work with like Emily Joyner and get her away from the rest of that group and up the hill. Now 3 seconds. It looks like the chase is up to Sandra Deegan, the PTZ rider. Maybe she'll do the work to get back, but it looks like she's eased it off a little. Maybe not. She's got a bigger group there. They're going to create a little bit more aerodynamic advantage. This is not the moment that you can get away for good. It's down to 2 seconds now to the tail of Whitelaw. Fortier decides she's going to do a little bit more herself. McMurtry just hanging on the back, biding her time. She wants to finish as high as she can. She's not going to let herself get separated from this group unless she can help it. She discovered that there was a little bit of difficulty on the climbs last week. She's a super sprinter and an unbelievable pursuit racer. Climbs are not for everybody. They tend to be just a little bit different. And she did a great job. So what she's doing is she's sitting in, she's getting as much draft as possible. Lauren is trying to make sure that she stays with this collection. She wants to stay near Muldoon, near Deegan, and make sure that she can climb up those points. She doesn't have to win this thing to stay in the overall lead, because the point differential is not that dramatic from first to, say, fourth position, which she could very well finish today. She needs to just continue to eke out on these climby runs some of these max points possible, so that when she hits those flats and she's taking those wins, then she can stay right at the top where she wants to be. This is a long season, 8 total races, and that's just how it goes, right? Okay, Sandra Deegan doing a nice job. They did not manage to pull them back. It looks like about 3 seconds, but in the men's field, this is where the fireworks are going to happen. David Talbot is our leader here. He is protected. Leader, of course, across the season. Adam Zimmerman would like to take that away from him today. Now, Adam Zimmerman is a little bit late to the party. We're in week 3. And he's got 1 race under his belt so far. That doesn't give him enough points today, but a big finish today, especially one with more points over your rivals here, gives you the best chance. There is that beautiful David Talbot beard. He's wearing the ODZ kit, which is the black, light blue, and orange stripes, diagonal no less. But you'll be able to spot him in the overhead view whenever he comes. All right. We're about to hit the first half of what will be just under 500-meter climb. This is 248 up to the top of this hill. We could be there in as fast as 10 minutes. We'll see if that is in fact the case. All right. So we get ready to kick this thing off, and we're going to see who the climbers are. Is it Olsen? Is it Griffiths? Is it Michael Rex Schumacher? You get off the roof right now. But probably somebody like Justin Purificati. Modi Pekelny still hanging around, leader in the B division. That guy might get an upgrade letter pretty soon, and it's getting ready to get crazy. Frank, this is not for the faint of heart. And so my question to you is that of these riders that are going to kick this, now it's not always the small riders who can just crush these climbs, but who is really well suited for this climb? Who do you think is going to emerge out of the top of this beast in that first position?
I think you're going to see Purificati and Zimmerman and Talbot at the top of this climb.
I like that. That's okay. You heard it right there from our guy, Frank. We'll get a little bit more commentary from him as we move a little bit down the race. Now, Purificati and Talbot are both ODZ teammates. And it's obvious. You see it in the big stage races, of course, the big summer stage races all the time. You may have a teammate who's wearing the jersey, but make no mistake, we are all, as a team, working for one guy. That guy historically has been Justin Purificati. Talbot does a great job. He's going to be high in this standard, but I think that everybody thinks that that Purificati has maybe one of the best chances to take this whole series. Okay, looking in with the real deal, Frank Deal, as he marks the front of this race as he is wont to do. The Team Experimental Rider, that's the Team X. That's the alien with the slashy X behind the well, you can see it down in the right corner of his screen here, rocking that beautiful overlay. Greg Leo just in front of him. Now, the dangerous part here is you do not want any big gaps. But Chris Beck, Henry also just kicking it off the front here. They let those guys drift a little bit earlier. I'm not sure that they really let Chris Beck drift. Maybe they know what this is going to be like. There he is, the other ODZ rider. Very telling that the other ODZ men are right at the front looking for their opportunity. Is he the rabbit that maybe wears out the hounds? Zimmerman howling, trying to get up there, but Purificati, Talbot right on his wheel. Let that man pull the chase back, and once we get there, you attack right over the top. You let the others do the work to pull back your teammate. You never chase back a teammate. Now, Chris Beck making this climb heroically. My goodness, do you hear the trumpets sounding? Yes, that's what he's doing. And they can't even see him. They just know that he's about 26 seconds up the road. Now, his heart rate has, well, not his heart rate. His heart rate is through the freaking roof, but definitely his power just spiking right now, but it has come back a little bit. Adam Zimmerman kicking out probably 6 watts per kilo. Maybe part of the big ODZ strategy here, not entirely sure. Now the draft writer comes to the front there. That would be Henry. Do not see him on the list. He'll probably appear to my mind's eye here in just a moment. He also may be one of those riders that is in a different category. He's not shown up in this one. Chris Beck actually racing in the wrong zone, a zone that he is not currently registered for. Well, it'll be interesting to see if he's got a transfer request in the works, or if he is just racing a second race today and working for his teammates, which is something that they can do. As they try to chase him back, Frank, maybe you can kind of riddle us that. Answer the question: what is the general rule and I guess the cultural application of the zones, right? We've got Chris Beck racing in a different zone than he is registered for. A guy like, he or Casey Shum can do a couple of different zones, can't they?
Absolutely. They can certainly, high class riders, if you think about it, on the Tour de France, they might ride for 5 or 6 hours in a given day. So doing a couple of races for someone who's truly fit like this is doable. It's not something I would look forward to, but if you're trying to do a little bit of extra work for the day and some stuff like that, then it's something that you would go and do. It's interesting that they've sent Chris Beck up the road. He could certainly win this.
Yes, he could.
And so it's an interesting rabbit. Now, what they might look to do is bridge somebody else up. Hope, like, for instance, if we were to Frank Deal on camera 8, what we would see is he's struggling. He's falling off the back here. Mm-hmm. He's got to hold 6 watts per kilogram, and so they might just be forcing more attrition out of the group. You've got Justin Purificati from ODZ. If this is his zone, I'm not looking at the live results.
It is his zone. Mm-hmm.
Then certainly that's something he could look to at the top of this hill, bridge to Chris Beck, and they could go away for the solo win. Now, I think what you're going to see is you got Leo in here. I didn't notice that we had Chris Beck in earlier. I think he was off the front, and as they say, out of sight, out of mind. But you got Beck and Leo. So you got Beck, Leo, Zimmerman, Purificati, all great racers, right? Zimmerman just took the CVR World Cup, the major here a few weekends ago in Los Angeles. Purificati took the CVR kickoff a year ago, and probably coming back into form after some time off the bike. And so, what you see here is just a tremendous race. In fact, if we go to camera 10, what you'll see is Leo hanging on here. But definitely in that tail gun position, definitely on the back of the pack, and we'll see how it develops. Frank's now 30 seconds back, just like boom, like that, right? You fall off the back, and it's like you're going backwards.
Disconnected, right? Somebody hit the parachute. You're right. He's going back in time. He saw Huey Lewis in the news, in fact, on his way. This is really interesting. Can we go back to the Greg Leo shot for just a second? You can see the work that he's doing. Fabulous. Greg Leo from Draft, chilling at a kilowatt. Oh my goodness. There's a lot going on this page. Can we just talk about that for a second? All right, we'll come back to it. But as he's chasing in with this group, he's working for his teammates, a little bit of gap off the front. He is not going to be the one to close that gap. I don't think certainly he shouldn't be. He should let the ODZ guys do it. But maybe he sees an opportunity. Oh, know what he's doing. I love this maneuver. It is so slick. If you come to the front like that, you set a false pace. You do just enough to make the others think that you are going to be the one doing the work, and you gap off your teammate off the front. This is fun to do in a crit, in a road race. You just let somebody else do a little bit more work, a teammate that is, off the front, and you pretend to try to chase them down. It looks like he tried to do that a little bit, and the two ODZ guys fell for it. Now, this is really not enough of a gap to make a big difference. Purificati, Talbot are going to be able to get back on this descent. Those boys, Adam Zimmerman and Kai Barrett, are not heavy enough, but Chris Beck has 1 minute and 11 seconds on him. This is crazy go nuts, right? He's about to hit the bottom of this thing. So cool. Hey, if you're joining us on any one of the different, places, throw in what you think is going to come of this men's race. Who's going to change in the standings and who is going to do what? Hello, everybody out there. Folks like BJ Alfonso, Neil Stewart, Dixie Newsom, Nathan Guerra. I need that guy's autograph at some point soon. Okay, Sandra Deegan on the climb, just 6 seconds back from Cheryl Muldoon, Emily Joyner, Team Vixen. But Whitelaw, as predicted, blued it up. That is right. That's what the kids say. Vicky Whitelaw did what we expected her to do and threw down on the climb. If we're to believe what we're seeing here, and I believe that this is pretty accurate, we've seen Vicky lay down about 5 watts per kilo on this climb. For those of you who are relatively new to the sport, watts, how much effort you're putting out, like Lauren McMurtry right here, versus your kilos. That is ultimately a fair descriptor of power across a group. I might be able to put out more watts than you, but I probably weigh more than you. And so my watts per kilo don't equal the same amount of total output and energy. As she gets out of the saddle, as she has to do from time to time to stay comfortable on that bike, she is really, really a strong sprinter and a strong climber. Fabulous legs for this kind of sprint. She's trying to catch back on to McMurtry, excuse me, to Deegan, who's now 20 seconds up the road, and she can climb the ladder. She's first going to try to get on to Catherine Fautier, the Canadian rider. Then she's going to get back onto Gokalp, and then Bore, and then hopefully Deegan. That's the ladder. Catch the next one. Catch the next one. And these are relatively short distances. Looks like only about 8 to 9 seconds to Fortier, then to Golpak. But Sandra Deegan trying to do the same thing, right? This is very much like cyclocross, which is to just catch the next person and not get caught by the person behind you. Just ooning it along, as my uncle would say. Emily Joyner and Cheryl Muldoon in that chase group, both Vixen riders with Whitelaw in there. Now, if we are to glance at the live results here, we get a sense of how this might shake out in the overall standings for these women. And we see that Lauren McMurtry, based on even her finishing position right now, will likely stay in first position overall in the standings, even though she's 6th on the course in her A division right now, or her A bracket. Cheryl Muldoon, who started in second today, can finish in second if she just can hang on to this position. And Vicky Whitelaw, as we kind of mentioned before, a little bit late to the party overall, not streaming, and that can make a difference in the overall, right? This is a spectator sport, and those who stream tend to have a little bit more, well, they do have more points available to them overall through this process. An additional 5 points per race. And when the top is separated by 2 points and 3 points at a time, like, 1,000 to 998, those 5 points come in handy. Streaming makes a difference. This is esports, ladies and gentlemen. So the women broken apart here on the climb. All right, back to Chris Beck on the front of this. Chasing the ghost of the great Frank Garcia. Not going to catch him. Adam Zimmerman a minute behind, and he has co-conspirators. Muir, Kai Barrett, Talbot, Greg Leo, all together are going to have maybe the best shot right now at pulling back Chris Beck. But 5 watts per kilo, which he can hold, my goodness, he can hold it, is going to require a little bit more. Now, boys, I need you to listen up. Gather around. Just take a seat here. A little pep talk from your boy. Now, you've got an advantage here because you've got all this, different aerodynamic advantage here, right? You've got a group. You can go a little bit faster as a group. But here's what it's going to take, boys. You're going to have to make sure you're doing the watts that he's doing, and maybe 1 or 2 more. As we look in on Greg Leo, he's not liking this advice being offered up by the sage old man. TT bikes, yeah, no TT bikes, my man. But you've got Henry, Brandt, Frank Deal now 40 or so seconds behind this group. Probably not going to catch him, but they may be able to put together their own collective here. Kai Barrett is the man on the wheel. Oh, you got to catch that. Talbot, you definitely got to catch that. Make sure, Greg Leo, you stick on any and every wheel that you can find. And there he is right now, Kai Barrett, showing you the inside of his fabulous garage, as he can do. This is the group that has to chase back Chris Beck if there's any hope. Now, Chris Beck is not able to earn points in this race. So maybe he's just off doing his own thing, trying to not get caught. And Talbot and Muir and Zimmerman realize that they are the de facto front of the race. Chris Beck is not in it for the points here. Maybe he was just helping his teammates out. And if he's really here to help his teammates out, then he's going to fall back, right? He's going to ease it up. But he should know by now that these guys are not trying to chase him down. He's continuing to grow this gap. It's not doing him any good. Chris, I'm just saying, if you're here to race for your teammates, then maybe, maybe wait for them on the climb or something like that. But if you are, that's too big of a gap for them to jump across. But if you wanted to break this thing up, you were successful, because lots of folks didn't make that selection. Folks like we've mentioned him a little bit. Interesting. We've got a little bit here, and I don't know that we bring it up and talk about it. I noticed that Justin Purificati also racing in the wrong zone today. That's really interesting. Also, Warren Muir racing in the wrong zone. These guys are clearly here to help out their teammates. So the guy we got to pay close attention to is David Talbot. It appears that everyone is working for him in a race like this. He is a marked man. But you know what? That is something, Frank, that I think that is interesting. I'd love to have you weigh in on. And that is this idea that you've got these teams that are working together, and they are thinking not just about one zone that they can own, like own the zone, which is the ODZ C zone approach. But this other idea of own the zones, right? You've got David Talbot, who's in this race, and you've got Purificati and Chris Beck, his teammates, here to race for him, and it's not even their zone. They're trying to get as many of their folks to these big races as they can.
Well, I think there's a couple of things going on here. Last season, the first season, people selected their zones. They were probably 3 or 4 races into the season, and figured out that they sort of had to stick with their zones. And then they saw some other zones, and they're like, wow, the competition doesn't look as hard in that zone. Maybe I should have been racing that zone. And I think ODZ, I think they're a team that uses intellect in their approach. And I think maybe they've come and said, hey, maybe instead of just picking one zone and making that zone ours, we should go out and explore and sort of be adventuresome and determine what zones really are maybe weaker. Because I think what happened is some of these weak zones had some very strong riders show up in them, because these strong riders thought, oh, well, this is going to be an easy zone. And so I think some of the easy zones became the hard zones, because you have
Yes.
UCI pro athletes in them, and people are having to rethink that.
No kidding. Well, this is really exciting to see, because these teams are coming together. We saw in CVR World Cup LA that, in fact, when teams come to play, amazing things can happen. The work done by the Velocity Vixen team to help Kerry Conabear with that unbelievable redemptive arc to go from not even making the elite finals to winning the elite finals. It was unbelievable. All right, as we look at Vicky Whitelaw, as predicted, she can climb, the Australian rider. Now with almost 2.5 minutes over Emily Joynon, the Velocity Vixen rider. She and Cheryl Muldoon working together this time against Sandra Deegan. But it looks like the group behind her is getting closer and closer. It's now only about 15 seconds to the next group. Deegan unhinged off the back here. As I saw it maybe just a little bit ago, she seems to have cracked a little bit. I thought she was right on the tail a moment ago, but in fact, she's got 20 seconds to catch that duo. Maybe just a little bit of a rest here. She's got to bring her heart rate down a little. 168 is fairly high. I know it's really high for me. And my heart rate goes up just watching her do this work. But to get back to Cheryl Muldoon and Emily Joyner, she's got to do a little bit more work than they do. As we mentioned before, aerodynamic effect, you got to go a little bit harder than they do overall to pull that back. 2 minutes back, we've got Lauren. Yeah,
I noticed, Chris. Although I think their teams are different. I think one's PTZ and one's Vixen, but they might be riding together, or maybe there's a transfer in the works, as I think you said in the last race here. But they will sort of maintain the same power as Deegan behind them and extend their lead. And you see here, Deegan might be working at 3.8 or 4, and they might work at 3.5 or 3.2 and stay away from her. And so this is it's tough if you're Deegan. I'll take a look at her heart rate. Her heart rate's 167. Cheryl's up at 178. Emily looks like she can take this one to the finish at 160. And so if you're Sandra, you really got to sort of make a decision. This is why you don't want to let those gaps form. But now you either have to make a huge effort, and 20 seconds is a very long effort. 10 seconds is very doable. You get beyond 15 seconds, and it's hard for one person to close that gap, but she's the only person there. Now, you could wait up for the couple of ladies behind you, but then you're probably a minute back, and a minute even with 3 people closing on 2 probably isn't very doable. So a tough spot. So it's probably a time trial to the end to hold 4th position for the day.
Yeah, and Sandra, has great patience in a race like this. She knows that it's race 3 of 8. She was very successful in the postseason, in the inaugural season of CVR World Cup, the league, and not the home game. Those are different things. CVR World Cup, the home game, we'll tell you more about that later. Not really a home game. This is the home game, right? Well, she was very successful in that. She's now 14 seconds behind, but to your point, she's got to go. She's got to go. And actually, she's got to go hard and test and see if they are really trying to manipulate the gap, right? If they're working toward gap control, that's a strategy in this esport. Gap control is very important. If that is in fact the case, she'll know right then. If she kicks it up to 4.5 and then they kick it up to 4.5, then she knows what's up, and she's going to have to maybe be a little bit more savvy about when she does it. The other thing, she might be waiting for that little hill coming up to Trafalgar Square. All right, Lauren McMurtry tapping out the what she's got here. I have under well, lots of folks, chiming in, telling me what's going on here. That I have it under good authority that Lauren McMurtry is going to build essentially the same type of Frank Deal piece that we saw before with the two-sided sweet overlay and things like that, which will very quickly become the standard for CVR World Cup races. You can still be incredibly creative, as we've seen in different folks. You can still have your Nyan cat, your flying toaster pastry singing cat behind you, as Kim Little did in the last race. Lots of opportunity, but it makes it a lot easier to broadcast for new folks. And we've got a lot of new folks out there who are watching it. Okay, we've got folks really believing in Team PTZ at this point. Go Sandra, go Joe, go Don, go PTZ. I'll give you one guess as to who posted that. Great question. Liam Baird asked, was there commentary for Zone E? Yes, there was. Yes, there was. I don't know what you were doing, Liam Baird, but we were calling your name and making fun of you the whole time. All right, back to the lead group here, or the really the Chasey Chase group. Now, Warren Muir also not registered for this one. Talbot, Leo, Barrett, and Zimmerman all are. This is their zone. Now, you'll notice that one of them Well, two of them actually have teammates to work with in this case. One of them may get a third teammate, or a second teammate rather, to join them here shortly. If Brandt has his deal, oh, big kick right there. They hear their names. They get excited. Oh, good dogs. Here you go. David Talbot tries not to get ripped off the back there. He has to catch that wheel. That was an attack by his teammate, Justin Purificati. Zimmerman chases him down, not letting him go. The draft rider, Zimmerman, has a teammate in this group as well, and they've got to work together to make that happen. Kai Barrett doing what he often does, which is to sit in that group and be as patient as possible. Okay, Barrett, Zimmerman, Leo, and of course, Purificati, they're together. This is what it looked like from Greg Leo's perspective just a few seconds ago. Ouch is what he said. That looks, he's got that fabulous look. And by the way, jerseys are out, bibs are in this season, and you can enjoy those whenever you like. Okay. Greg Leo settles into that position right there. Kai Barrett in the same stretch, but of course, Knight has wrapped him because he's in a dark, dark place as he tries to stay on the wheel of Adam Zimmerman. He knows what Adam Zimmerman can do. He saw it at CVR World Cup LA. The major saw what he was able to do to world-class athletes, able to sprint around, I wouldn't say with ease, but with incredible effort, sprint around folks like Lionel Sanders, the reigning world long course time trial, or rather long course triathlon champion. Talbot trolling the front there. You see a little back and forth. Let's talk about this technique here a little bit of two teammates continually attacking the front of the race. I've done it with my teammates in previous races before, where I attack, then somebody has to chase back on, and then you attack and someone has to chase back on. It's almost like kangaroo fighting. It doesn't seem to have a lot of purpose, but what is the actual purpose, Frank?
Typically what you're trying to do is, especially if there's a marked rider in the group, you're trying to get that rider to have to respond to each of those attacks, right? You can't let either of the ODZ guys go. And so each time you follow, well, then it's two efforts for every one effort that they're making. And eventually that's going to wear you out. So that's typically the tactic that's being used. Now, it's interesting here, and I don't know, and maybe ODZ is a little bit more privy to this. Maybe they're using live results and the other guys aren't, because really you don't have to chase the guy who's not in the league, and that might be indeed, or in the correct zone in this case. That might be why they let Chris Beck go. Yeah. In terms of not watching. Now, I think probably Chris just went away on sheer power. He just climbed the hill faster than anybody else. Chris is a national champion, Masters national champion in the U.S., and I think that's his current title that he holds. And we see Purificati going here, and this is kind of what you're setting up for. And you see, Greg Leo, looking at this as well, and it depends on which screen we're looking at. When I talk about this, but I think they're just trying to get somebody to jump. Sometimes, even if you're looking at the live results, when that jersey flashes by you and it's ODZ, you don't know if it's Talbot, you don't know if it's Purificati right away, and you've got to make a response. And so you stand up on your pedals and then you jump, then you look, but you've kind of burnt a little bit of a match, right? Because you got excited, your adrenaline started pumping, and you just see a lot of orange numbers here. Looks like ODZ is trying to lose the draft helper in Greg Leo here, and you got Talbot there off the back though as well. And so that's a little bit interesting. Maybe overcooked it a little bit, and Leo climbs back on. Now you've got Zimmerman. Zimmerman is not going to be easy to leave. So really, this is kind of interesting. You got 2-on-2. It looks like
exactly.
Got, and so that's fairly even. And if you're Kai Barrett, this could be a bad day, right? I mean, they're not trying to get rid of you, but basically it's 4-on-1 because the two are attacking the other two, and they're going to, punch and counter punch, and it's going to be a very long day for you. Now, the good news is they're probably going to be okay with you sticking around, or the four of those might say, you know what? we've got a outsider here, no other teammate. Let's lose him, and then we can do battle. A lot of times teams will do that because it makes sense to win that war of attrition. And you might be concerned about Kai coming back on the climb or leaving you on the climb. Now, Kai did something very interesting at the end of the last climb. He did a very coy, "Oh, I don't think I have another one of those in me." And as soon as somebody says that, my spidey sense is off the chart. I'm thinking he's feeling good, and it will become, very apparent at the beginning of the next climb whether or not that's the case. But my spidey sense would immediately go off.
No kidding. And, he may be just looking around at these guys saying, guys, can't we just all get along? But I think actually, follow me here. I think Kai Barrett is actually the guy in the best position. Here's why. Because at some point, there's going to be a really big move to try to get Talbot off the front, right? And that'll come with some help of Purificati. But Purificati has no other reason to chase if his guy gets up the hill on the climb. Purificati, a dang hard and talented climber, so maybe not. But also, Leo, if he gets shucked off the back because Zimmerman is getting away, Kai Barrett could sneak away with those two boys, and they could spend a little bit too much time, flexing their muscles as they approach that finish. And Kai, who is a very talented sprinter, could still get away. I think we're seeing a growing movement. Oh my goodness, there's a Kai Barrett webpage now of all of his fans. They think he can do this today. Hey, we had a great question by Brad Curtis on the chat here on Facebook, and we are answering questions. It's all Request Tuesday, just so you know. And this one goes out but his Brad Curtis asks, Haskell, Frank, can you introduce your backgrounds? What are our backgrounds? I'll go first. I'm a no talent hack that just talks a lot. Frank, what about you?
I am a college dropout who loves playing with video games.
There you go. That's what it is. Now, in reality, I'm a university professor. You'll call me Dr. Haskell, Brad Curtis. No, I'm a university professor that specializes in games and esports. I'm actually the director of esports for Boise State University. Frank is a Grammy, a 3-time platinum winning Grammy winning artist. Tell me what you do.
I have to say this, Chris. This is pretty funny. So, you joked about being a hack, and then you talked about how you were a university professor. I am truly a college dropout that loves playing with video games. So there you go. I think I win on the day for most humble person in the broadcast.
In the broadcast booth?
Yeah, in the broadcast booth. But I will say this. I do have some experience developing software and developing organizations that develop software. And obviously, I used to cycle and race. I used to go all around the country and race. I wasn't that great. You can't look me up in the pro annals of the tour, but I really have always enjoyed racing my bike. And as I got a little bit older and developed organizations, I spent a lot more time not being able to make the rides when other people were doing them. And when Zwift came along, I hopped all over that. And now we're trying to develop this into something that spectators are going to want to watch all the time. And we're moving the needle there all the time.
And definitely moving the needle. Also moving the needle of pain is Adam Zimmerman, who's decided he's going to push the tempo here. David Talbot on his wheel. Frank did not give himself nearly enough credit, but we'll circle back on that when it cools down here a little bit. But Talbot having to put out a lot of effort to catch on. His heart rate at the max. Frank is taking a rest year right now, but we know that he is going to be back here before much longer. It takes a lot of work to make all the wires work correctly, get the code monkeys to build these pieces so that we can actually watch this, the first physical esport, the hardest video game ever, and people love it. So thank you for tuning in and watching. So great question, Brad. Now, as we're seeing here at the front, Adam Zimmerman put in a nice piece of work there and is still holding the front of this thing. Chris Beck is really killing it up the hill, but that overall lead is starting to drop, and this group may be able to pull back some of that time, probably not all that time, but we are not paying as much attention to Chris Beck because the winner of this race is sitting within this group, conceivably, unless there's a crash bug, right, where they'll all crash and they'll have to be taken down the mountain. But you can see the effort on the face of Kai Barrett as he tries to just stay with this group. His heart rate is just about pegged. He knows he's got, if he can put out 5 minutes of this, he'll be to the top with the rest of these folks. Box Hill is the name of this location, virtual London. The real Box Hill is a little bit further outside, I am told. I've never had a chance to ride it. Maybe my buddy Andy Jenner and I will get a chance to ride it next time we go to London. But as Greg Leo stays in this group, I think he's hung on for longer than people gave him credit for. He is a fighter among fighters, but look at all that red in the power area, and look at that almost solid red line. If that were his heart rate, he'd be dead, but that's his heart rate average, and so you can tell he is pegged right now. What do you see here as we're stretching this thing almost to the halfway point?
I think it's very interesting that Zimmerman's on the front here of this race, sort of dragging everybody along. And Adam is a tremendous sprinter, as we learned in Los Angeles here a few weeks ago. Won the final sprint to win the overall stage race in Los Angeles. And so I find it interesting. So I'm not familiar with Talbot. Maybe you are, Chris, from a sprinting capacity. I mean, obviously a very strong individual, but does Zimmerman fear him in the sprint? Because he's behaving as though he does. It looks like he's trying to put some hurt into Talbot's legs, which is a strange tactic coming from a sprinter, right? Because usually if you're a sprinter, I'm a sprinter, when I'm in shape, and that might be 6 months or 9 months away from being in shape again. But the tactic that you normally take is just to hang on at the back, do as little work as possible going up the hill, because it feels like the end of the world in your legs, in your lungs as you're going up, typically as a sprinter. And so I find that interesting. If I was Adam, I might be saving a little bit of energy, but I think there's a little bit of a intimidation factor going in both directions between ODZ and draft. So I think we're seeing a rivalry start to form for the spring season in CVR. And you see those things develop, and then sometimes those cool-headed tactics leave the window, and it's, I'm going to show you who's the patron. I'm going to show you who's really got this, as we get set up to psych people out for the end of the season and then the next major in Vancouver.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And that next major is going to, but if you look at this, you've got two jerseys that are, you've got one jersey, excuse me, that is a one-of-a-kind jersey in this group. Sorry, I saw the Greg Leo jersey and thought for a moment, mistakenly, that it was actually the Norwegian jersey. But Adam Zimmerman is the U.S. Zwift champion. He's the fastest virtual cyclist in this entire world. So, excuse me, the U.S. So as he comes up and over the top, we see it from the watcher view now, almost exactly on time. Zimmerman still sitting in with this group. To your point, he has lots of power. Does he fear Talbot? I would doubt that he fears anybody. He's got the stars and stripes on his back. My guess is that he might have actually just been trying to remind those guys what he could do. But it's not like they were sitting on the back of some hay truck, being pulled up a hill. Those guys were working their tails off because at 5%, you don't get a meaningful draft, right? You don't get pulled like you would if you were on a flat and you'd only have to take a pedal stroke here and there. Well, see who maybe try to gear things up as they come over. I don't think anybody's going to get separated here, but they're all into the red. Zimmerman with the highest number so far. He rings the bell. Talbot maybe is going to try to get a little bit higher, but no, they seem to, there's Zimmerman again, 11 watts per kilo. That is pretty good. Talbot with a little bit of a gap. He just can't let that gap grow. He's going to reconnect with him when he comes up and over the top here. But that is, it's a lot of pain right before a casual descent. They can almost, not a single one of them, never take another pedal stroke on the way down, which would be a mistake, and they'll never get separated here. That's just the way the aerodynamics work. But they got to keep their legs moving. Now, trying to catch Vicky Whitelaw, Emily Joyner, and Cheryl Muldoon come to the front here. Sandra Deegan has pulled it back within 10 seconds. That is really something here. We have missed how she's been able to do that. But she is obviously much closer to those two. And I think based on her success previously, that the PTZ rider is probably going to be able to maybe catch them on this climb. Joyner and Muldoon start. Yeah.
I think she's going right on by, and it's game over for the other two.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that Sandra's put in too much of an effort. But sometimes you're too cute by half, I think is the expression. And Emily and Cheryl here may have thought, we have it and we'll get to the climb and we're more rested. And that might indeed be the case. We'll see here in the next few moments. But sometimes that other person has worked into a great rhythm. You've given them the confidence, and now they just have the desire to close that last 5 or 10 seconds, which is very doable, right? Under 10 seconds is a sprint effort. To just get back. Now, I wouldn't recommend that to Sandra at the bottom of the hill, but you can absolutely convince yourself at 7 seconds, I can pull this back. And so I always like to keep somebody more than 15, probably 20 seconds behind me, if that's the effort that I'm looking at doing.
Well, there she is. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner of her screen, right, you'll see where she is in relation to those other two riders. Well, she can certainly see them up the road, but this gap is dropping very, very quickly, and she's going to be able to tap out a pretty steady pace. The thing I'm noticing about Joyner and Muldoon is they tend to be a little bit more surgy. Sure, they'll do 4 watts per kilo here for a second. They'll drop it to 3.8, but then in a second it'll drop to 3.1, 3.2. There it is again. And those, looks like Joyner is leaving Muldoon behind now, said, I'll see you soon. She knows what she's got to do to get up over the top of this. I think she may know where Cheryl is at. A lot of these teams communicate on Discord, TeamSpeak, and other communication methods. Maybe she's said, hey, look, sister, you got to go without me. All right, back inside. We're going to call this big sprint finish, and then we're going to check in on the women on this climb. As it relates to this race, the man up ahead, Chris Beck, is not somebody we really have to worry about. Yes, he got off that group. He created some animation early on, but he is not actually racing in this zone. His zone is a very different zone. The man who's leading this zone right now is David Talbot. The man who wants his spot is Zimmerman. Adam Zimmerman is currently sitting in 8th place overall coming into this. He got a late start in this zone, but he wants to take back as many points from Talbot as he possibly can. Now, Frank Deal, Matthew Brandt, Chris Olson, all in this group, but not in this group, right? The man who is, of course, is Greg Leo. He's further down in the standings, but because he's made this group, he really gives himself an advantage over some of his compatriots and foes in this. All right, the quartet still together. I did not see in that group the man I would hope to see. Oh, no, he is there. Kai Barrett is in that group, but the guy who is disconnected off the back, Justin Purificati, left the group at some point, likely after that climb. We expect to see Justin Purificati in the next race, I believe. And so he got his workout in.
And although Chris is not racing for points in the zone here today. I would like to give him a shout out. A heck of an effort, a massive win. And now, tactics play a part in this. Maybe it wouldn't be quite this massive normally, or maybe it would be, but a massive win to Chris today. Fantastic effort. Quality bike racer.
Yeah, quality bike racer indeed. But he was a pescatarian for a while, and we should question that. That's actually not true, not to my knowledge. Okay, Zimmerman leading out here, and it looks like he's kicking it up. He's going to make those boys, kind of close it to come around him. That's an interesting spot. Talbot looks around and says, Leo, aren't you going to close it? He goes like, no, bro, that's my teammate. So Talbot is getting ready to have to do this himself. He doesn't have Justin Pierre-Ficati, his teammate, in there. But Kai Barrett, as I mentioned before, sitting in that sweet spot. And there he goes right now. Zimmerman content to finish fourth. But here he goes. Kai Barrett into that second position now. Greg Leo leading at 15 watts per kilo. What the what? And he is pulling away. Kai Barrett in that second position trying to catch on. Can he do it? He's closing that gap. It's shrinking really quickly. Did he go a little bit too early? He may have. We see this. That's zone the pass. There he is. Kai Barrett going crazy off the front. And he's going to take this second position overall. First in this race. First in his division. And Talbot looks like he may have also been able to come around at the very end. This is what we see from his perspective. We're on board with Kai Barrett. He sees the big jump there. Nice gap by Leo.
10.
And he doesn't panic at all. Barrett decides he's going to chase this down, and he knows what this looks like right there. This is the view from Leo as he saw it, as it got away from him. He's like, oh, baby, so close. Kai Barrett in second position, so he'll have the most points of this division.
Good too.
And Leo comes in third. Talbot drifts across, but still Talbot holds on to that first place. Unofficial, but holds on to that first place in his field with a 99.5 at points average overall here. He got 1,001 points on the race today because he streamed. Right? That is one of the great benefits. All right, back to the women on this climb. Cheryl Deegan, only 2 seconds off of Muldoon. She's going to catch her. It's going to happen right here where I predicted on the painty section. But Joyner may be gone. And we'll see. Now, you mentioned that when Deegan gets to Muldoon, she would probably ramp it up and blow by her. She's already a watt per kilo higher. That's to be expected. She comes, she digs. Will she kick up to 4? Doesn't need to. Well, Muldoon tries to catch on to her wheel, but you got to start pedaling before that because 7 meters is painful to close on a climb like this, but she can do it. That's Cheryl Muldoon we're talking about here. The Velocity Vixen rider, 4.5 watts per kilo, climbs right into that nook.
An interesting tactic here, I think, that what happened. So I think Cheryl was paired with a stronger rider in the break in Emily Joyner. And I think at that point, if you're someone like me, you're like, I'm just going to sit on. I'm just going to enjoy this. But a tactic for Cheryl might have been on the flats to work pretty hard and to extend the gap to Sandra significantly, right? At the end, they let it close in. And sometimes what you want to do is grow that gap so big that Sandra's just like, okay, I'm just going to kind of sit up. I'm going to pedal in. I'm going to stay in front of the people behind me, but I'm not going to go super hard. I'm not going to try and chase and catch. Once you have an advantage, you want to press that advantage. And sometimes that means working a little bit harder than you think is prudent, and still staying enough within yourself that you're not going to blow up on the hill. But that might have been a better tactic, something for Cheryl to think about in the weeks to come, because she might find herself in that position again with Emily. Now, true to form, what the racers normally do is make me look not very intelligent, and Cheryl is gonna ride Sandra to the end, sprint by her, and be like, "No, Frank, I like my tactics better." But to everyone else out there, that is a good tactic to press. I often do that. I don't climb well. Just about everybody climbs better than I do. I will extend as much of a gap on the flats. I will work where I don't normally work with somebody on the flats to get that gap as big as I can. So when I hit the hill, I can just hold a nice, steady pace. Not that I'm comfortable with, a little bit beyond that, but see what that happens. So, it looks like we're going to shape up for a sprint finish here as we hit the top of the hill.
Yep.
Sandra, if I'm Sandra, I think when I hit this, after we go through the banner here, we'll have that one last kicker of a climb. And I would probably go really hard there and see if I could get Cheryl off my wheel and just ride away. Now, if I'm Cheryl, I might try the same thing. That's what often happens on Zwift. They'll both try it, which will neutralize both of those efforts, and then they'll ride down the hill together and do a sprint finish.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. When you talk about riding uphill, I would think that my underwear rides up more consistently than I do. So I completely relate to that. But as far as the tactics on this, we've got two riders who, for whom this is a meaningful finish. Now, Sandra, would really like to have these points on Cheryl, who's sitting in second position overall. This is not going to be a week where Sandra can pass her, but is definitely. Oh, and she's got a little bit of a gap, 2 seconds on her, 3 seconds on her. That was interesting. That little drift away. I'm not sure if Muldoon is looking around for a water bottle. She responds now, but it might be just a little bit too late. And you don't necessarily want to put in that much work when your opponent is resting a little bit and will probably dig it pretty hard here. But wow, that fell apart quickly for Muldoon. She was right there together, maybe lost focus, or maybe just lost just the physics. She doesn't need to beat her across the line, but would probably benefit, certainly in the points, for doing so. Muldoon is going to pull this back right here, maybe takes this opportunity to come up and over the top. Wow, that's interesting.
That might have been a very crafty move. So I can think of two reasons for this happening. Number one, you had to drop out. Or you lost focus, right? Some sort of distraction or mechanical, or you're playing a little bit of a tactic here, which is to make Sandra think she's going to get away, and to put in a relatively large effort to get sort of Deegan to put in a higher effort than she normally would, right? So, and we've talked about this throughout the race. Sandra has put in sort of this even keel. I'm just going to race my pace, throughout the race, and not tax my engine, right? So some people have sort of that diesel engine, and it's great at going long distances, but as you go super hard, it puts them into the red, and it can really mess with that diesel engine, right? Gets too hot, there's some issue. And I think Cheryl was making her, because you're Sandra, you're like, oh, I could get away here. And so you go hard, and you go into that red zone, and Cheryl smiles to herself, and she says, I'm the Ferrari. I'm going to race up to her now. But I'm going to make her have burnt a match for the sprint. I think very, very wise. I think while we're on the downhill here, Chris, we're going to go take a look at the men's replay. We'll replay the finish there,
okay.
Practice our technology, if nothing else.
Okay, here we go. Here was the big men's finish. And boy, it was a good one. We've seen a couple of these in this exact way. I mentioned before, sitting in that. All right, and here's what we're looking at right now. Kai Barrett, very cagey, sitting on every wheel that he could. He was the only man without a teammate in this break, and he fought hard to get on the wheel of Greg Leo. Greg with a great jump. Adam Zimmerman was working for Leo all day today. Talbot caught out behind, 3 seconds behind. But the question was, would Kai Barrett be able to catch and pass? The answer to that question, he was. He was able to sprint around Leo at the very end. And a lot of folks can do what he did there if they get it just right. Here's another look at it from another angle with the little bit of a dip that comes down right there at the end. If you've got a little bit of a draft and a little bit more power, you can pass somebody at the end. I wonder if it was designed with this exciting concept in mind. But there is Barrett gearing down on him, and that's what Leo saw as he came around. It's like, oh, crap. Wipes the sweat off his brow. Very proud of a good sprint. He was able to get a couple more points against his rival in this, specifically Talbot. But that's why you sprint.
remember I said when Kai said, oh, I don't think I have another one of these in me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he would be a marked man in my book from this point forward. And I would have learned not only to not trust what he said, but give a little bit more credence to the opposite of whatever he said.
Right.
But well played by him today.
No kidding. Okay, this is the final piece coming up here. Neither rider working very hard. I think they're going to give us a nice sprint to the end. There may be an opportunity, for Sandra Deegan to push hard on this little climb and maybe get away. Cheryl's been attentive most of the time here, but with Sandra on the front, now's the time where you can kick it. This is a 15% grade and it hurts. There's a reason the numbers are red. They're filled with blood. And look at that. Deegan decides she's going to dig a little bit harder. Now, she knows well you push hard to the corner and Muldoon doesn't even respond. In fact, almost in saying, yeah, we're good. She backs it off so that there's just no question that she has really just granted this, or so we would think, or so the Germans would have us believe, that Sandra Deegan is gonna come away with this. She's got 8 seconds on Muldoon now. If she lets it get above 10, I think that that's an honest no effort to the end. Yeah, she's doing 4 watts per kilo and 3.5, but when she needed it, it wasn't there. And I'll tell you, Muldoon's got one of the coolest actual pain caves of any of the folks in here. If you've ever seen it before, it's pretty cool and exciting. There are lots of colors going on in there. Very, very cool.
Yeah,
doesn't look like it's coming through clearly on us, but yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that we want to work with the riders on, Cheryl had some great graphics on hers, and first of all, I'd love to say thank you for doing the CVR World Cup graphics, but we actually have a way to do both, where if you fit into the template, we can show you in our branding, but also keep your branding to be able to show that as well. So it's one of the technological advances that is coming. Hopefully next week we'll have that. But just sort of a shout out. First of all, we greatly appreciate that. But we also want people to be able to be creative and have fun. They'll have to fit it into the template so that we can pull it in and give either or at any given time. And but anyway, again, much appreciated. But we'll also work with everyone to get their graphics as well.
Well, as we look to the end here, we might check in just one more time back the road. I don't know if you're interested in doing this, but Lauren McMurtry is in this quiet little race with Tobin. And she just did a little bit of a push, little effort to get back on her wheel. And there they are together. I think these two are probably going to sprint. Now, we won't be around, I don't think, when that happens. We think that we've got a sense of how this race is going to shape up. Lauren doing a great job to stay in that points lead today. Cheryl Muldoon coming in second overall. Vicky Whitelaw, who won the day, climbs closer and closer to those two women, showing that she's not only really good at this whole bike racing thing, but also is coming for that top spot. And we think that that's probably going to happen. Catherine Fortier. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, a couple of things here. While we've got some time, and if I don't distract myself too much, we can watch some of these people finish. But let's sort of focus on this. We've got Lauren who's streaming, and we'll kind of switch back and forth between the race and Lauren streaming. People can get a sense for that. Later on, we'll have the technology to merge these together. That's again next week. We'll talk a lot more about the broadcasting. A lot more about making this ever more a spectator sport. We are building a new professional sport here. It's already starting to be recognized far and wide. Part of that is the large cash payouts that we're making to video game players, right? That always strikes fear into the hearts of parents. But at least physical esports, you also get physically fit, and you can see that from any of the athletes that we've been streaming today, that this is not only good fun, but it's good for the body, and I would say good for the mind. as well. And so you'll see over the course of the coming weeks that we are building this professional league, this new professional sport. We are injecting physical sports into virtual worlds, a la Ready Player One kind of thing. We're having a lot of fun here, so maybe the future is here a little bit sooner than we think, Chris. And lastly, I'd like to mention the other thing that we're pioneering here is paying the women the same as the men.
Yes.
And we think that's very, very important. It's very, very exciting. That's generating a lot of excitement. Just give you an example. The last place person in the CVR World Cup, which was 2 or 3 weeks ago now. It's been a blur, so I'm not sure on the exact timing.
Was I there?
Took home. You were there too, Chris. Took home more than the first place finisher in the UCI Pro race this past weekend. The first place winner took home about 7 times as much as the first place winner in the UCI Pro Tour. We don't think that's right. We think the women are as exciting to watch, great racing, and we are just thrilled to be pushing this forward.
Yep, and Lauren McMurtry pushing this race forward as she hangs onto the wheel of Tobin. They are coming up to the big finish here to show us exactly why this is so exciting. Yes, fighting for 6th position in this race, 6th overall. But those points are important to someone like McMurtry. And look at this. We have talked about her power before. She kicks it into high gear. Tobin in a great spot, tail getting behind her, can conceivably pass her, but McMurtry can lay down way more power. She is a sprinter extraordinaire, and she takes that spot from Tobin this time. Now, that'll be nice as well for her to be able to put a few more of those coins. Here's what it looked like for her. Look at that sprint. She gets her knees nice and inside there. She gets nice and arrow, even though she's inside and doesn't need to. Look at that into the drops as she does with the grit on her face. She's been doing a lot of work for on nearly an hour and 20 minutes, and she's showing that she can still give a good kick at the end. Nice job, Lauren. Nice job to all of the racers today. Okay, coming up here in just about an hour and 50 minutes, we've got, for us, the finale of the day, although there are 2 more races. That'll put us clearly in the final bracket here, and that is the G for us. There's an H beyond that, but we don't broadcast that. So what I'm hoping that people will do is, set your timer, jump in and see what it's like when some of these unbelievable athletes that still have to race today face off on this course that you just saw here. Okay, it's been a fabulous day so far. 2 great races, 1 more to go as far as this broadcast is concerned. But huge thanks to everybody working knobs or buttons or sliders in the background. Great job to all of the athletes getting your bike set up and your fans turned on. We've got lots of fans turned on that are checking this out. And thank you very much for joining us on behalf of Super Frank, who will not tell you how cool he is, but I will. And myself, Chris Haskell, the one who's really faking it here. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in just a couple hours.